Okay, so hello and welcome everyone. We are not going to spend too much time on introduction and preliminaries because they just eat up whatever little time we have. But you know, the most important thing is that we adjust our motivation. You know this very well and you're capable of adjusting your motivation. You know that adjusting the motivation is something which is of paramount importance. When we talk about Buddha Dharma, everything depends upon the mind. And when we say upon the mind, we mean upon the attitude that we have that comes down to the motivation. When the mind is good, everything will be good. When the mind is not good, everything will not be good. So with this expression that says when the mind is good, that is referring to the motivation. If you set the motivation in the beginning and the motivation is good, then whatever activity follows from that will also be wholesome and virtuous and good. But if the motivation is not set properly, then everything is ruined after that. So you know all those things, you know how important it is. So we're going to proceed with reciting Ganden Lagema. It's the opportunity and the means for adjusting the motivation and also accumulating the necessary merit that we need to begin with the study of the Lamrim. So in terms of the Lamrim, we have reached the section where we're talking about the proper way of relying upon the spiritual teacher. And we have explained that there are great benefits of if you rely properly upon the teacher. There are listed 8 benefits. And also there are great disadvantages if you don't rely upon the teacher. So the disadvantages, again, they are listed as 8. Basically, they are the opposites of the advantages that you get. Now, this comes under the section that we have to understand that there are great benefits of relying upon the teacher. Once you understand that there are great benefits, then you will develop the interest and you will say, okay, tell me what is the actual proper way to rely upon the teacher. How should a disciple develop this relationship? What is the proper way of relying upon the teacher? So here we are dealing now with the second section that explains the shortcomings and the faults and how you miss out if you do not properly rely upon the teacher. As we say, they are listed as 8. From those 8, 4 outlines have already been presented, and we'll begin now with the 5th one. The 5th one is found on page 231, halfway down the page, is outline number 79, that says you will not develop fresh qualities you have not already developed, and those you have will degenerate. So if you lose your faith to the Guru, if you have already established a relationship and then you back off from that relationship and you don't know how to properly rely upon the Guru, you will not develop any new qualities that you don't have, and any qualities that you might have developed, you are going to lose those. Those things will decline. So it begins by saying criticizing your Guru and so forth. So this word criticizing includes different types of behavior. It includes disobeying, not following his instruction, speaking badly of the Guru, criticizing the Guru, and so forth. So criticizing your Guru or any of these other activities prevents you from developing fresh realizations in this life. So the realizations it's talking about is the qualities of the grounds and paths. So in this life, you will not develop any qualities of grounds and paths that you do not already have. And those you have already developed will decline. If you have any qualities, you will notice that they will begin diminishing. Archarya Krshnacharya slightly disobeyed an order of his guru, Jalandhari, and thus did not accomplish the supreme goal in that life. So in terms of siddhis and in terms of goals, you can say we have the supreme and we have the ordinary or the mundane. The supreme refers to reaching the state of enlightenment. So here we have mention of a story on how Archarya Krshnacharya did not obey his own guru. So Geshe says, I will give you the story, I will explain the story, and hopefully this will help you retain the meaning of this statement. Okay, so Let's start with this story of Archarya Krshnacharya and how he disobeyed his Guru Jalandhari. So he developed a relationship with his Guru Jalandhari, and he had progressed quite a lot in terms of his achievement, his practice of Dharma. He had reached quite a high point. And at one day, in one particular occasion, his guru made a request. He says, I want you to take this particular, he had a gao, he had an amulet. He says, I want you to take this amulet and go in this location. You'll go into this place and you will find that there is a gathering of many ladies, many women. Amongst them, there is one lady that is shorter than the rest, and she has a darker complexion. You will recognize her because in her right arm, she has some markings in the skin. She has some dark spots in her skin. So he says, you will recognize her by these characteristics. So he says, I want you to take this amulet and travel to this location and give it to that lady. You have to give it to that particular lady, but I don't want you to speak. I want you to remain completely silent, and I want you to remain completely focused whilst you're doing that. And he said, in particular, as you are traveling to this location, I do not want your eyes to wander around, looking around, wandering, with wandering eyes. So this was the particular instruction. And he set out, Archarya Krshnacharya, he set out doing that. On the way, as he was riding his horse, going to that destination, he disobeyed this instruction that he was supposed to remain very focused, very still, very silent, and not looking around. He had to maintain a particular gaze. Otherwise, he will be looking around. And he didn't maintain that gaze. So what happened was that he became distracted. All right. So by looking around, he became distracted. All right. So as he was riding to his destination, he started looking around. And because he was looking around, he became distracted. Because he became distracted, that amulet that was supposed to remain sealed and locked became unlocked, because it seemed that the locking mechanism that was keeping the amulet intact was his concentration. But because he disobeyed the instruction of his teacher, and his eyes were wandering around, he lost his concentration, and as a result, the amulet became unstuck or unlocked. So it was open. So straight away, already he was deviating from the instructions. The second instruction that he had received was that he had to remain silent. He was not supposed to talk or to give any teachings and so forth. However, he didn't do that. Once the box of the amulet was open, he took out whatever was in there, and he actually engaged in teaching activities. And he gave teachings to different disciples and so forth. So he did quite a bit of talking whilst he was not supposed to be doing any of this. And then he came, he reunited with his teacher. And in this particular occasion, his teacher said, I am feeling quite thirsty, and I would like you to provide some water. So the question was, how would he provide water for this? And the teacher said, look, I have here a bull, like a cow, or actually there were two cows. And he says, I have this, I don't know what's the word in English. There is this forked instrument that we actually use for plowing the fields. So it's almost like a plow. So yeah, a plow, let's call it a plow. So he says, this with the animals here, with the bulls, you need to plow the ground, and with that you will be able to find the water that I'm requesting you. So although he tried to plow the ground, he had no control over the animals, and the animals actually went away, they perished, and he was not able to extract any water from the ground. And his guru appeared and he said, the fact that you have no control over the animals and you're not able to plow the ground and produce the water that I requested is an indication that you have disobeyed my commands. You have broken the instructions that I have given you. If you hadn't broken those commands, you will be able to totally control these animals. And by saying this, the Lama disappeared. Then he continued actually teaching his disciples. And after a while, he became hungry, right? So he developed hunger. And having developed hunger, he started thinking about consuming a corpse, right? And at that point, his Lama took another manifestation or appeared again, but he took the aspect of a vulture. And this vulture came upon a corpse and started eating the corpse. And then he spoke again to him and saying, when you actually teach the Dharma, this is the proper way to teach it, and you're not doing it the proper way. And again, he disappeared. So in this second case where the Lama appeared to him as a vulture eating the corpse, basically he was saying, if you are to teach Dharma properly, this is how you should do it, and indicating that you should have the ability to transform yourself and partake of the corpse, right? If you're hungry, you can even partake of the corpse. Anyway, that was, if you want, the second warning or the second indication where the Lama was telling him that he's not teaching the Dharma properly, or he has not reached the level where he should be teaching properly. Anyway, he continued with his teaching activities, and at that time he had quite a big crowd of followers, students in his entourage, and the teachings were happening at the banks of river Ganges, and what they needed to do was to cross on the other side. So as they were preparing to cross on the other side, there appeared this woman that was in a very poor state. She appeared to be suffering from leprosy, and her whole body was covered with sores and open wounds and so forth. And as the party was preparing to cross, she said, "Oh, please help me, please take me along, please help me cross." But no matter how much she pleaded with everyone ignored her, and definitely Krishnacharya paid no attention to this woman, this leper woman, and he crossed and his other followers crossed. It was only his very last disciple, who was a Getsu, that he really paid attention to this woman, and he took hold of her hand and he started pulling her and helping her into the water as they entered the stream of the Ganges, and he was helping her cross along with them. And when they reached halfway in the waters, in the width of the river, this woman started flying up, the helpless beggar who was a leper. Of course, she was a manifestation of Vajrayogini, so halfway she started flying up in the sky, and she took with her that last disciple. So they disappeared up flying in the sky, and she took him into a Buddha pure field, okay? So disappearing in the sky. And again, there was this message that you are not ready to teach. You cannot teach Dharma. Why? Because, for example, you have not reached a state of clairvoyance. If you had clairvoyance, you would be able to see that this was not just an ordinary beggar, like a helpless leper, a woman with leprosy, but instead she was a yogini, she was Vajrayogini. So that was the message that was given to him again. Yes. And there are many other stories like this. So along the way, there were many other incidents that happened. But anyway, we're going to skip those, and we will go to the last episode. So there was this occasion they were preparing to offer Tsog, right, to make the Tsog offering. So Archarya Krshnacharya was preparing to make the Tsog offering. At that point, a particular person that had a very dark complexion, almost like you would say, very black complexion, that person appeared and he said, I will be the one that will offer the talk today, and the talk should be offered to me. I should be the main, the main figure in the talk offering. And Krishnacharya said, how on earth this would happen? When there is a talk offering, I am the main one. And obviously they continued offering the talk, they made the talk offering with Archarya Krshnacharya being the main figure in that offering of talk. And as they came to the conclusion, to the end of the talk offering, this person with a very dark, very black complexion changed his appearance into Heruka Chakrasambhara and flew up in the sky and disappeared. Again, he was a manifestation or an emanation of his guru. And he said to him, as he was disappearing up in the sky, in the aspect of Heruka, said, I have told you many times, you are not actually ready to teach the Dharma, and you have disobeyed me a number of times. I have explained this to you already. And as a result of this, you will not become enlightened. You will not achieve the Supreme Siddhi in this life. In order to purify the negativity that you have created, you will have to compose many texts. This will help you purify the negativity, and through this you will become enlightened in the bardo, in the intermediate state. And this, indeed, this is how it happened. So this indicates that by disobeying his guru, reaching the state of enlightenment did not happen in this life as he was capable of achieving, but instead it was delayed and it was postponed until he reached the bardo. Okay, then he continues by saying, Rechungpa disobeyed Milarepa 3 times and did not achieve the supreme goal. They say he took 3 rebirths to achieve it. So disobeying 3 times, it took him 3 rebirths. Once an Acharya of low caste had a high caste disciple. This disciple could fly in the air. One day, he flew over his guru thinking, not even my guru can do this. So being of higher caste and having the ability to fly in the sky, he was flying over his guru. And as he was flying over his guru, he had this thought thinking, my Lama doesn't have this quality. Like I have superior qualities. And just immediately as he had this thought, his power immediately declined and he fell to the ground. Okay, then it says, Pandit Naropa forgot his guru's command and debated with some Tirthikas, they are non-Buddhists, right? And thus did not achieve the supreme goal in that life, but had to wait until he reached the bardo. Again, this is a very good and meaningful story. So Geshe-la would like to elaborate on this story that happened between Tilopa, who was the guru, and Naropa, the disciple. All right. Okay, so this is a story about Naropa. So you can see there is the epithet Pandit. It's a great title because Naropa was actually a great scholar and a great Pandit. He had mastered the 5 sciences and he was extremely learned. In Nalanda, he was what is called a guardian of the faith, because we have to understand that at that time, different people from different countries who were not Buddhists would come and debate, challenge the Buddhists, and in particular the monks in Nalanda. And if you lost a debate, it meant that all your followers would have to then follow that other person who won the debate. So Naropa was one of the guardians of the faith, meaning that he was defending Nalanda, he was defending the whole monastery from different non-Buddhists who would come in and debate. So he was extremely skilled in debate, he was very knowledgeable. So although he was a great scholar, he had a problem with disciplining his mind. So it is said that despite his great knowledge, he could not keep his mind disciplined for the amount of time it took to milk a cow. So he was not satisfied with this, and he thought, I will go in an isolated place and I will find a way of taming my mind, disciplining my mind. So he did go into an isolated location. And there one day appeared an old lady. And the old lady, he was reciting some text, he was reading some text. And the old lady came to him and said, now tell me, you're reciting the text. Do you actually understand the words? And do you actually understand the meaning of this text? And he replied and says, yes, I understand the words. And to which that old lady smiled and laughed and appeared to be very happy. And then he continued by saying, yes, I understand the meaning, of course. To which the lady appeared to be displeased and she cried. And he asked her, I don't understand why you're behaving, you're reacting this way. When you ask me if I understand the words and I say, yes, I understand them, you're pleased. When you ask me if I understand the meaning, and again I say yes, you seem to be very upset and you're crying. Why is that? And the lady said, in the first case, I'm quite pleased because you're telling the truth. Yes, you understand the words. In the second case, I am crying because you're telling me you understand the meaning, but this is not true. This is a lie. And he was quite taken aback. And then he says, well, if I don't understand the meaning, do you know someone who understands the meaning? And she says, yes, I know someone who's very close to me. His name is Tilopa. He understands the meaning. And if you also want to understand the meaning, you should go to the east. And with this, she disappeared. So he was left there. I mean, he was given some instruction. It looked like a prediction. But he wasn't 100% sure that he could, that it was reliable, right? That he should take it as it was given to him. So he decided to go into retreat in order to verify what that old lady had told him. And in the early hours of the morning, at dawn, he received a second prediction in the retreat. And that second prediction was that, yes, indeed, you should go to the east. Your Lama is there, your Guru is there, and what this lady told you was correct. So with this verification, through his own retreat, he accepted the advice of that lady and he wanted to begin the journey. Now, he was not alone. He had a companion, like an attendant companion, and he discussed with him. He said, we're going to travel to the east, but they were going to go towards Kusali. But the companion said, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to go into that area, so you will have to travel alone. So he started his journey to the east alone. Okay, so he went on his own. He started traveling to the east, and he reached an area called Jalandhar. And everyone he was meeting along the way, he was asking, are you by any chance Tilopa? Are you Tilopa? But everyone said, I'm not Tilopa, So he kept asking, couldn't find Tilopa. One day he was by the river, at the banks of a river, and he saw a person there, and that person looked to be like very weird. He was not attractive at all, had very dark complexion, was not beautiful, was not good looking, and the clothes he was wearing was basically rags. And that person was catching fish and was eating the fish that he had just caught. And he looked at him and he was thinking, what great negativity, this person is catching fish and eating fish like this. So he made a comment to him and he said, look, please don't engage in these negative actions of catching fish and eating fish. And at this point, that person, that fisherman, he had just caught a fish and he just blew on the fish like this, and then put it back into the river, and the fish was revived and swam away. So when he saw that, he thought in his mind, oh, maybe this is Tilopa. And just as he had this thought, Tilopa replied, yes, I am. So he could read his mind. And then he was thinking, but still, how could he do that? Does he have the right realizations, or is it, how can he do that? And isn't there negativity engaged in catching fish and eating fish like that? He was just having that thought. And then Tilopa again replied to his thought saying, no, there's no negativity. I have high realizations. So with this, he was convinced that he had found his guru. He accepted him as a guru and he started following him everywhere as his disciple. So having become his disciple, he made a present to him. The present was a golden spoon. So he gave to his teacher a golden spoon. But his teacher took this spoon and he actually threw it up at him and it hit him. It hit him in the stomach and he developed a pain. And he went away. Tilopa went away and he left Naropa there in pain. And then after a while, he came back and he said, are you feeling sick? You're not feeling well? He says, yes, I have this great pain. So Tilopa came and massaged him and touched him and completely healed him. So, as you say, he started following Tilopa, seeing him as his teacher. At some point, they had to cross a river. But actually, there was no bridge in the river. And Naropa knew that in that river were some creatures like crabs or something, or leeches, crabs, leeches, some creatures that if you tried to cross the river, they would attack your flesh and eat your flesh, piranhas in India, something like that. Anyway, so thinking he didn't want his teacher to suffer from that. So what he did is himself, he threw his body over the water and made a bridge with his body so that the teacher could walk over him and cross safely. But Tilopa was quite heavy. So as he stepped on Naropa, Naropa's body sunk to the bottom of the river. And there were many of those creatures there. And they started attacking his stomach and they entered his body through his stomach. They penetrated through his stomach. So obviously he was in great pain. But again, as they crossed over, eventually they crossed over, and Naropa said, oh, you must be in great pain. And again, he touched him and massaged him and healed him. So, as you say, Naropa was following Tilopa as his teacher, and they say he followed him like a dog, like he was like a puppy. He was just following him everywhere. So one day, Tilopa, they reached a very beautiful place. It was a flower. It was like a flower garden, and Tilopa said, "I want you to go in that garden." And I want you to pinch the queen. All right. So he says, how will I know who the queen is? He says, you will know. Yeah, I just want you to go there and pinch the queen. So he went there and he saw there was, like a group of very beautiful and important ladies. But he noticed that there was a Brahmin who was making offerings to one particular lady. He was giving blessings to her, he was giving her garlands of flowers and so forth. So he thought, oh, that must be the queen, actually. So following the advice of his guru, he went in there and he actually touched inappropriately the queen. So as you can imagine, he got quite a bit of beating. So by the time he came out of that garden, he was black and blue in his entire body. So he goes and meets again with Tilopa, and Tilopa says, are you in pain? And he says, yes, it pains. I'm in pain all over my body. And Tilopa says, don't worry. And Tilopa just blew, he did like this over him, and then again he touched him with a massage and completely healed him. Then they kept going, and later on, Tilopa asked him to do something else. So there was a minister with his wife. The minister was traveling with his wife, and he was very proud of his wife, very proud and very possessive of his wife. So Tilopa says, you see that minister there with his wife? I want you to go and abduct this wife. So he went straight for that wife of the minister. And of course, there were bodyguards all over the place. And again, he was apprehended. and they beat him so badly that they broke every bone in his legs and his arms. And he left the scene and he was crawling towards Naropa and thinking, this time I have broken so many bones that I think that not even Tilopa can heal me. But he reached Tilopa and Tilopa says, oh, is something wrong? Are you in pain? And he says, yes, every bone in my body is broken. And he says, don't worry, I will heal you. So once again, he blew on him and he touched him and completely healed all the broken bones. There was another occasion. There was a festival, and in that everybody was celebrating there. There were a lot of people gathered, and there was food. Food was prepared, and every person was allowed to take a portion, right? So there was food, but the food was portioned for everyone, so that it would, everyone could enjoy the food. So Naropa went there and he took the allocated portion and he offered it to his guru. And the guru took the food and he ate the food and appeared to be enjoying it very much. So Naropa thought, oh, if my guru is enjoying the food so much, I should go back and get some more. So he went where the cooks were, with the big colanders, the big cooking pots. And instead of taking, let's say, 1 spoonful or whatever was the measure, he just took the whole pot. He wanted to take the whole pot of the food to offer it to his teacher, because he's thinking, I want to please my teacher. But of course, the people were totally upset. They were saying, what are you doing? Every person has a particular portion. You're carrying away the whole pot. That won't do. So he was reprimanded, he was scolded, he was beaten, trying to take away the whole pot and offer it to the guru. Okay, there was another case where they went into the temple. There were many, the monks, the assembly of monks there, and there seemed to be a competition. They were trying to find who is the strongest and the bravest in this land. And in order to show your bravery, you had to jump from the top of the building. And when they got there, Tilopa said to him, jump, you should jump. And he thought about it for a minute, and he thought, well, if I jump from the top of that building, I'm going to break again every bone in my body. But then he thought, never mind, I will break everything, but my guru will heal me. So he didn't want to disobey his command, and he jumped from the top of the building. And of course, he had a hard landing, and he broke everything. He broke his ribs, he broke his arm, he broke his legs. Again, every bone in his body was broken. But again, Tilopa came, and he blew on him, and he touched him, and he totally healed him, and he was as good as new again. Okay, so there was another occasion, they were in a forest. So there were a lot of trees, and Tilopa asked him to cut down many trees. So he says, I want you to cut down the trees and pile the trunks here. So he piled all this wood, and then he said, I want you to lit a fire, a really big fire. And having lit the big fire, then Tilopa sat there and made the comment very casually, I wonder if someone here is brave enough to jump into this fire. So hearing this, Naropa, of course, said that whatever my teacher is saying, I will do it straight away. If he asks me to jump, I jump. If he asks me to do something difficult, I do it. And it doesn't matter how much I suffer. Actually, immediately he comes and heals me. So he says, even if I jump into this fire, right, I will be burned, but he will heal me. So he jumped into that great fire that he had prepared and lit, thinking that I will be burned, but immediately he will heal me. However, Tilopa went away for a few days, and he left him there suffering with these incredible burns all over his place. He almost died, and the pain was unbearable. But after a few days, he returned. And again, he gave him his blessing, he blew on his body, he massaged him and completely healed him. And having done this, he said, look, you have been following me for quite a long time. And I see that whatever instruction I give, no matter how dangerous it is for your life, you actually do it and you have no hesitation. So tell me straight, tell me honestly, what is it that you are seeking? What are you interested in? Why do you follow me? And Naropa said, I'm seeking the way to enlightenment. So Naropa said, Tilopa said, I can see that you have the right temperament. I can see that you will be a very good candidate. So I want you to offer me a mandala right now. But when he said, offer me a mandala right now, they were in the middle of wilderness. There was nothing precious. There were no shops. There was nothing. He could not get any provisions. He couldn't offer a mandala. So he was thinking, how am I going to offer you a mandala? And he said, use whatever sand and whatever earth, soil you can find in this place. And Naropa was thinking, yes, but I cannot just offer sand. It has to have the shape of the mandala. So he was looking around for some water to help him make some clay or shape the sand. And there was no water. So he was sitting there thinking, there's no water. And Tilopa says, why are you freaking out? You just pee, and with your pee, you will have the liquid necessary to shape the clay or whatever, to shape it into the form of a mandala. So indeed he peed, and he, with his hands, he took that soil and he made it into the shape of the mandala and offered him a mandala. And he took this mandala that was made out of pee, basically, and so Tilopa took the mandala and then he just threw it back into his face. And as these mandalas, this material, hit his face at that moment, he generated high realizations. So at this point, Tilopa gave him all the instructions that he was looking for. But together with the instructions that he gave him, he said to him, look, you are a great pandita, you have great knowledge, and you are very successful as a debater. But from now on, I do not want you to debate. I want you to live your life as a practitioner. So all your energy should go into practice, and I don't want you to debate at all. So he followed this advice, Naropa followed this advice, and he went in a quiet place. Actually, he was living close to an old lady, and there he just did practice day in and day out. So this lady knew him as a great practitioner, not as a debater or anything else. At that time, remember what we said, that people who from other kingdoms who were not Buddhists would come and challenge a country, and in order to defend the country and the faith of the country, the people had to debate. So they arrived, non-Buddhists arrived, and they challenged the king of the country. And 500 panditas from Nalanda Monastery actually tried to debate with those non-Buddhists, but none of them had the capacity to win them in debate. So the situation was getting very critical. And the king called again all the panditas in the palace, and he said, surely someone amongst you must have the power and the capacity to win those non-Buddhists in debate, because if we lose, we will lose the country and we will lose our faith. We will have to follow them. And those panditas said, look, we're sorry, we have already tried, but we were defeated and we don't have the confidence to hold this final crucial debate. So they were running out of options. But this old lady came in and said, look, there is a great practitioner who lives next to my house, and maybe we can ask him to come and help. Like, we ran out of options, let's ask him. So the king says, okay, bring him in. So they bring him into the palace, and they say, please, help us, because the Buddhist teachings are in great danger. If we don't win this debate, we are going to lose the country, we're going to lose the faith, so please help us. And remember, he was a great scholar, he was a great debater, so he says, okay, I will help you. So the debate began, but he found in the course of debate, he couldn't give the right answers. And he was thinking, why am I losing this debate? Like, I'm a great debater. Why am I losing here? Why can I not score a point against those non-Buddhists? And at this point, he remembered the advice of his guru, because his guru had said, no more debate, right? So as he remembered that, he realized he had disobeyed his guru, and this is why he was losing the debate. So in his mind, immediately he offered confession to his guru. As he offered the confession to his guru, Tilopa appeared. And when Naropa saw Tilopa, he prostrated. Now, the opponent, who was a non-Buddhist, was in the like Tilopa appeared in the direction almost behind the opponent. So when Naropa prostrated, it seemed that he was prostrating to the opponent. And the opponent said, you're prostrating to me. That means you are acknowledging that you have lost the debate, isn't it? And at this point, Tilopa showed the threatening mudra. And he said, no one has lost the debate here. And he just ran around, he showed the threatening mudra. And the debate was in the palace. So he completely destroyed the palace just by showing the mudra. And of course, the non-Buddhists were terrified witnessing that amazing destruction that happened. And they prostrated to Tilopa, and they lost the debate. So they had to become followers. They had to become Buddhists. Anyway, at that point, Tilopa explained to Naropa that you have great capacity, you have great realizations, I have given you my instructions, and in this life you will achieve many things, you will have many followers and disciples, and your lineage will be long. However, because you disobeyed my instruction, you will not reach the state of enlightenment in this life. You will achieve it in the bardo, so it will be delayed. And indeed, it came to pass like this. And again, this is a story that illustrates that breaking the word or disobeying the advice and the word of the guru just once can have great consequences. So this is how Naropa spent his life. He continued to practice. He was a very accomplished practitioner. And eventually, when he passed away, he was cremated. At the location where he passed away and he was cremated, some incredible signs appeared. So sound was coming, people could hear sound from cymbals and other musical instruments, and a shower of flowers came down from the sky and so forth. And even today, they say that in that particular location, if those who have pure karma go there, they can still hear the sound of music coming from the sky. We'll continue just to finish that section. It says, Manjushri predicted that two particular novices from Khotan, so Khotan is a particular location, these novices would achieve the supreme goal in this life, meaning they will become enlightened in this life. But the two developed wrong views about the Dharmaraja Songtsen Gampo. Because of their doubts about him, instead of achieving the predicted supreme city of Buddhahood, on returning to their homelands, they gained only the city of being able to fill sacks with gold. So they had the capacity to reach the supreme city, which is enlightenment in this life, but because they generated doubt in their mind, instead of achieving the supreme city, they achieved something much lesser. They just had the capacity to create gold, right? So it continues, if you have wrong views about your guru, so this comes under the subheading of criticizing, like having wrong views, criticizing, disobeying the guru. So if you have wrong views about your guru, it postpones your development of insight and realizations, and the great cities you were to attain become lesser ones. As we can see from this story, instead of getting the supreme city, they got a much lesser city. Okay, so this about finishes our time, this story. Okay, so this last story about the prediction of Manjushri. There were these two novices that they wanted to meet Chenrezig, and Manjushri said to them, if you want to meet Chenrezig, you should go to Tibet. Go to Tibet, and there you will see him. They said it was very well, it was known that the king of Tibet was a manifestation of Chenrezig. So Manjushri gave them this prediction and told them, if you want to meet Chenrezig, you go to Tibet. So they went to Tibet, and when they arrived there, they saw that the rules and the laws that were implemented were very harsh. So they saw people being killed, they saw people's hands being cut off, like very severe punishment. And they asked around and they said, you know, who has passed such draconian laws? You know, why is punishment so severe here? What's going on? And they said, oh, you know, this is the king. The king, Songtsen Gampo, of Tibet has passed these rules, and this is what happens if you break the law, and so forth. And they were appalled, right? They were totally appalled. They thought, it cannot be a manifestation of Chenrezig. It cannot be Chenrezig who is passing laws that says you have to kill people, decapitate people, you know, cut off the hands of people. It's impossible. So they generated that doubt. Nevertheless, they went and they met the king. And when they met the king, Songtsen Gampo, he knew very well the doubts they had in their minds. And he explained to them, listen, you are in Tibet, and in Tibet, it's very difficult to discipline people. It's very difficult to discipline Tibetans with peaceful means. And therefore, you have to pass very strict rules. You have to implement these strict rules, and you have to maintain that wrathful appearance. You will achieve nothing with peaceful means in Tibet. Although they heard this and they understood this, in their minds, they really had that doubt that Songtsen Gampo was a manifestation of Chenrezig. Although, as we said, it was well known that all the kings of Tibet were manifestations of Buddhas, manifestations of Chenrezig, and so forth, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and so forth. In their minds, they had the doubt. Anyway, at the end, Songtsen Gampo said, and what is your wish now? Do you have the wish to return to your place, back to where you came from? And they said, yes, as quickly as possible. So he gave them some sand. He picked up some sand, which he blessed, and he said, here, I give you this sand, put it in your bag, and this will help you. And this, by giving them this sand, almost immediately they were transported back into their place. So it was like magic or blessed sand. And when they arrived in their place, back into their place, instead of that, they opened their bags and they found that that sand had actually become gold. All right. So this is what it is. These two novices, they had the full capacity to reach enlightenment in that particular life. But instead of achieving this, they ended up only being capable of producing gold and filling up, just as their bags were filled with gold. They were just able to produce that type of seeing, that type of attainment. So you can see that actually we cannot really trust our eyes. Our senses and our sense awareness is very often mistaken. What we see and what we criticize, what we see as lesser, what we see as fault, is not in reality the way it appears to us. We cannot trust our sense awareness. It is mistaken awareness. So for that reason, it is very important to maintain faith and have no doubt for the Guru. If you lose your faith, if you disobey, if you have doubt for the Guru, then you end up either not generating any new qualities and realizations, or lessening whatever achievements you end up having. So just in the case of these stories, you know, all those protagonists in the stories, they had the capacity for the supreme, but they achieved something which was lesser, and it took them much longer time. And this is actually the reason why we give all these stories. They are all elaborate stories. There are many stories like this. Really, the stories drive that point, right? They explain that point again and again. If you do not have faith, if you do not have respect, if you do not obey the Guru, you will not develop the qualities and you will not achieve the things that you want to achieve, right? If you have the faith and the obedience and the respect, all of those things are achievable. But if you're not, as these stories illustrate, you're going to miss out. Okay, so definitely we finish the session here. We run out of time. Okay, so we're going to dedicate.
Janjo Simjo Rinpoche Maje Pana Yeyoje